I want to give my bit on setting OS X free or licensing out OS X. Now, before I begin, I'm not going to allow any type of personal flaming or emotions against individuals to flare up. This was something that happened last time, and I want to make it very clear that no individual is going to be brought up in this, and if that's the case in terms of responses, I'm going to ignore it. I really want to keep this on topic. I have been bombarded by many in PMs and emails to reignite this debate or discussion, and I have seen a lot of great videos that have really been sparked when I did my whole Mac versus PC TV ads video, where I had made an if condition in there, and that was the whole premise of that was based on if Windows is a primary antagonist in the Mac versus PC TV ads and Dell, HP, and all the other OEMs are not, then fight software with software and set OS X free. And that provoked response, and other videos have come about since then. So this is a very well discussed topic, and emotions are likely high on both sides. I myself am very passionate about it. And so let's try to keep level heads. And first and foremost, my position is that I want Apple to do well, among other things. So let's not get things confused in saying I'm going against Apple in any type of fashion. Those that would disagree with me, and many times many of you are likely going to continue to disagree with me, and we'll have to agree to disagree. Both of our goals are likely the same, in that we would like Apple to do well. So let's start this whole series on that note. The first topic I want to cover is something that I get asked the most, and that is, why am I so passionate about licensing out OS X? That's really simple. It comes from my career. I'm going on 15 years in the computer industry, going from hardware to networking and software programming. So many of my experiences, observations, and things that I've lived within the market culminate to my passions about setting OS X free. To go back to the tipping point for me, of likely where most of it started, is when I left Apple, or being an Apple user, before 1995, when Windows 95 was really coming, but really I was more interested in Windows NT. So I abandoned being an Apple user for being a Windows NT user, and that was solely based on the vision that I saw in Microsoft. Apple was always very, very protective, and that was great, and they had great technology, but I was really interested in the Microsoft model. They had already captured the majority of the market away, whereas Apple was really number one in 1980, and by that time had lost, Lord, it was in almost the single digits of market share. So I was in awe of where Microsoft was going, and really with the vision that they had within the NT product, which was really a workstation type operating system that I saw potential that could go into the consumer base. Long story short, they changed directions for whatever reasons, and chopped off some things and went another direction where a lot of the retail side was brought into the NT side, and you went on with Windows 2000, and then you had Windows XP. Many of you who have followed me for a long time know that I used Windows NT 4 since its inception till about late 2003. So, as I digress a little bit, watching that technology fade away, and then the dominance of Windows just capture the market, and the descent, the even further descent of Apple, I was frustrated in the environments that I felt limited in software. I only really had one option. Sure, I could go into enterprise space and work in the Unix environment, but most of the clients that I was dealing with were Microsoft. There were still Unix clients out there, But everybody was going to Microsoft. Heck, I was a Novell Certified Network Administrator. Microsoft even took over that market where you became MCSEs and things like Microsoft Certified Engineers and things like that, or Microsoft Certified Professionals, however you went up the line there. So I felt that there needed to be an alternative desperately because everything else was fading away. And this leads to our behavior. And one of the main reasons why I went into software was that I observed how it affected our behavior, how it manipulated our lives. And I was frustrated with one dominance, especially for the retail side, that it had so much dominance, and our behavior was a result of it. Even to this day, where I get technological arguments saying, how can OS X do this and that? Won't it be just like Windows? That's how bad Windows has manipulated our behavior and the things that we know. We're not even open to the notion that other operating systems behave differently because it is so dominated by one system. Other smaller examples that I've actually dealt with hands-on and witnessed: point of sale systems within restaurants. Inability for tickets to be split into two and causing frustration for the restaurant patrons to be able to split their tickets. This isn't necessarily a Microsoft issue at this point. It's showing how software can cause shifts in behavior and things like that. Or inefficiencies in being able to get cross-referencing information when you go to get something repaired or picking up a package, things like that. And so these cause just behavioral frustrations and limitations and things. And when you're a programmer, and you can certainly try to do your best in making your own applications and things like that, you're still riding on a foundation of some sort that in itself has its own limitations, and or you could have a great application, but if that what you run on is plagued with other problems, your application suffers. So that was the main frustration, and I really wanted an alternative. So I'm going to try to make this next point short. There are a lot of other operating systems out there, but there are really two spaces out there that I'm going to just briefly talk about: the enterprise space and the retail space. We have Linux, BSD, Unix distros, all this other stuff, right? The closest operating system in the retail space that I can see that can go out there and give us an alternative, okay, is OS X. Now, let me define alternative. We need something else to balance out, and what Bill Gates' favorite word is, contribute to that retail space. And not at the pace of selling one Mac at a time. At the pace of selling one Mac at a time, but also one OS X license at a time. At that speed. That way, the percentages in market share can be that to which enough, and other companies are out there that are still very much laughing at the whole Mac industry and stuff, will have no choice but to focus on OS X because of its size. Now, don't get me wrong, Windows is never going to go away, and it's never going to really lose anytime soon even a 60% hold on the retail space market share. So I would just like to see, optimistically, maybe in the 30s, but we don't even have to talk about numbers. For me, it's sufficient enough to get the rest of those that still laugh at the Mac world on board, because it would hurt their business not to want to invest in getting into the partner programs and everything else having to do with software development to further OS X. Now, for those of you who are in support of Linux and saying, hey, well, what about Linux? I am very much a Linux fan and will be there to support Linux, but it is not quite as user-friendly or pervaded enough in the user retail market that I think it would have as much a shot as OS X in terms of support and a company to be there to satisfy all demands it, usually the OEMs in combination with Windows or what Apple is contending with. It will be there one day, no doubt, no doubt. Linux is really smoking hot in the enterprise space right now, and will continue to do so on that front. And for BSD or whatever, and we could all be wrong, and one hotshot comes out and makes another flavor of an OS, and if that happens, great. My whole end goal is to have something that contributes more and gives us something else out there to help change this shift and give us an alternative, so we're not completely dominated in our behavior that we have today. So that is where I'm coming from on a lot of my passion in setting OS X free, and the importance of just not focusing on one company or another, but the importance of that. I would hope that all of us are really into technology here, and if you're watching my videos, you certainly definitely are, and that in that broad world, the benefit that would give, and also not to say, hey, well, you're forgetting about Apple. I very much think that would benefit Apple, and then I'm going to now get into that. So I hope that I've really answered another section of where my passion comes from. I've certainly been on streams. I've had other videos that also talk about my passion. I would invite those of you to watch my older Setting OS X free videos to get further on where I come from personally.